and welcome here to MoreTalkFCB, and welcome to episode 3 of the TalkFCB podcast. That unfortunately, guys, it wasn't meant to be this way. You know, we're not supposed to be talking here about a defeat, about what went wrong, about how exactly we can solve all of this. But at the end of the day, I think this too is where the podcast can help all of us. Because honestly, we just need to talk sometimes, because even, you know, when it's all great and we're winning every week and we're scoring lots of goals, we love that, of course. It's the best feeling ever. It feels absolutely amazing as a fan base to experience that. But at the same time, you know, when things aren't going so well, when we've had a defeat like we did on Sunday, I think the important thing is to talk amongst ourselves and to ultimately get through that and find positives. That's what we're also going to do today. It's not all going to be doom and gloom. We're not going to be very, very down on ourselves here. We're going to understand what went wrong, but how we bounce back and what are the fundamentals of this team, how we can stay firm and make sure we continue playing the best football that we can. So hopefully, guys, you're going to enjoy this episode as you have done the others. I really appreciate all of the feedback there, so thank you indeed to all of you guys. Let me know again down below what you're doing whilst you're listening, where you are in the world, because hopefully, wherever you are, you still have a smile on your face. Because let me just tell you, this is still, no matter what happened on Sunday, this is still a very, very special Barca team. But if we do, first of all, kick off with a few super thanks shout-outs here on the channel, guys. Really, really appreciate the extra support. It really does go the extra mile and help support the channel. So thank you indeed to Harmon. Really appreciate the support from you. And Ronha, who loves the podcast format, and they have been watching the videos for 7 years. That is absolutely incredible there. And also to Mosin. Really, really appreciate the support, guys. But if we kick off here with some of the questions that you guys have had, let's start with Yazan from Canada, who's also loving the podcast there. He says, I will never understand how people now are saying, oh, this defeat against Real Sociedad, that's the real Barca. This is the Barca that we're seeing now. And that it's maybe comments like that from fans, or whether it be from the media, that makes it so hard to play and manage Barca there. And those are very, very good and accurate thoughts that I would say. Because yes, after a game like this and after a defeat, it's never good, you know, it's never easy. We're never going to come here and start celebrating over the fact that we've lost a game. As fans, we're always going to be sad, and we're quite emotional, you know, as football fans. And it's not just Barca fans, by the way. Lots of people say, oh, Barca fans are so emotional. Football in general is a very emotional sport. You know, you can't expect people here to behave like robots where there's no emotion involved at all and it's all statistical. You're going to have emotion to it. That is why football is such a popular game right around the globe, because it's full on emotion, and we wouldn't want to change that. So Barca fans here, they're not overly emotional, but of course it does affect us when we lose games, and especially in the way that we lost yesterday, because I think we'll all accept, you know, at some point we're going to lose. You can't win every single week. Again, the players are not robots, just like we're not. You can't win every single game forever. You're going to lose at some point. But I think what was more shocking maybe about yesterday's game, it was that performance level. I was not really expecting Barca to go into that game against Real Sociedad and look like that, because I really do think here we were outclassed by them. You know, we're going to go on to talk today about the offside goal and things like that, which obviously they don't help. You know, it's not helpful here to play in La Liga with these referees. We're going to talk about that anyway. But just to go back here on those thoughts there, on that media reaction, on certainly the feeling from the outside, people saying, oh, well, this is now the Barca. We've all been waiting for this slip up. We've all been waiting for the system under Hansi Flick to fail. And that is what I would really hammer home and stress here. Yes, we may be disappointed by the loss. We might have all been very surprised by that performance last night, but do not give the media and all of those critics out there, do not give them the satisfaction of falling into their trap. Barca have just lost a game, but for the rest of the season, they have been outstanding. We are still top of the league. We are still flying in the Champions League. We are still scoring goals for fun in general. So don't let one game here dictate everything, and don't fall into their trap now thinking, oh, everything's bad, everything's going to come crumbling down. They want us from the outside to be negative. They want us from the outside to start fighting, because they know that when Barca are at their worst, when they start to fall apart, it comes from the inside. You know, they can't actually penetrate us from the outside. They can't actually here make us crumble with their words, with their criticism, with their pressure. The only time that's allowed to happen is when that seeps inside of the club. So we as fans here have to make sure that we're staying strong. You know, the players and the coaching staff, that's what they've got to do. But we as fans have got to do that too. We've got to believe in the process. We've got to trust here in what we've been seeing all season long. Our eyes have not deceived us. We have seen Barca play a very, very effective system. We have dismantled Bayern. We have dismantled Real Madrid. We have put in excellent performances. And yes, there's going to be some off days. There's going to be some games whereby the performance is not what we expect, but we have to trust that we will bounce back. And I am absolutely sure here that Hansi Flick's team, they are fully capable of that. And after the international break, and after a little bit of rest, a little bit of key rest especially for several key players in this team, I believe that we will see a response. However, guys, we do still, though, need to address here that offside goal. Because yes, I accept, and many people will say, oh, we can't use that as an excuse. Hansi Flick himself said, look, we're not going to make any excuses here. And I don't think that we should either. But that also doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. Because the other staggering thing about, the reaction in the media, about what they're saying right now about Barca, people are happy enough to jump on the, oh, Barca are terrible now. The system at Barca is clearly not working now anymore. They're happy to say this way more than we were robbed of a perfectly good goal yesterday. Now, I cannot believe how quickly the media move on from that. What we saw right there, it was an absolute disgrace, that decision. I cannot ever remember seeing VAR do something like that there, where they've actually highlighted the wrong player. Like, can we actually put into perspective here how crazy a decision that is there? They have actually stated and put it there in images in front of all of our eyes that the defender was offside. That's why Lewandowski's goal was ruled out. That is absolutely, it's criminal. It's absolutely staggering. And again, whenever we're on a good run, what do we hear, guys? Whenever we string together good results, good performances, oh, we've got new news on Negreira, on the Negreira case. It's absolute nonsense, by the way, that we are portrayed as the ones here who, oh, we've had some influences there, we've had refereeing influences on our game, and yet, how many times do we see decisions like this against Barca? They are baffling. You cannot explain them. Nobody can explain them, and nobody even talks about them in the wider media. So that is why, even if we're not going to use it as an excuse, which I don't think that we should, and Hansi Flick won't be either, that's a good thing, but we still have to talk about it. We still have to highlight it, because what we are seeing, it's not normal. This is not a normal way for a league to operate. These are not normal decisions that you will see. And the way that it's just swept under the carpet, I mean, that says it all yesterday. It was a clear goal. It was clear and obvious. And even despite Florentino Perez and all of his men sat in the VAR room, why couldn't they see that? However, guys, yet again, even despite how much of an appalling decision that was out there yesterday, I think it's still important that we talk about what we did, about what we can control, and especially there, about what we brought to the game. And the way that Real Sociedad were pressing, I mean, it kind of made us all think, wow, that's what we were doing just a minute ago. That's what we usually do to teams. And actually, you can see how impressive it is. You can see how difficult it is when teams are pressing you in that way, with that energy, with that intensity. The crowd as well were incredible inside the stadium there. It is tough for any opponent to deal with that kind of pressure. And that is what ultimately I would say yesterday was missing from our game. That intensity, the energy, the pace in our play, and especially the pressing. Because I've also had lots of questions here coming in. Is it now the offside trap? Is that the problem? What is your thoughts on Real Sociedad getting in behind us there in the game? They had lots of runners there breaking our offside line. And another question here, do you think that Hansi Flick's offside trap will fail miserably one day when opponents eventually find a way to counter our high line? We've already seen it in games there, potentially against Espanyol and also now against Real Sociedad. But just like before, guys, when we've spoken about the offside line, we talked in great detail here about what it means, what it represents to play that kind of way under Hansi Flick. But that's the thing about yesterday. I wouldn't again say, oh, the problem, the blame there has to go to the high line, to the offside trap. That's the real problem here. The issue was, where was the pressing? Because as we've said before, don't even think about playing this Hansi Flick system with the high line, catching teams offside, if you're putting no pressure on the ball. It makes it all useless. Because, yeah, that high line, if you're not putting pressure on the ball, if your opponents do not feel they're under pressure, rushed in possession, if they've got all the time in the world to get their head up and look over the top and think, oh, there's a massive space there. Look at the runners. I've got time to pick out the runners. Do I want to go over there? Do I want to go over there? What kind of pass shall I play? If you've got time to think about all these things and really analyse what's in front of you, of course you're going to get caught out. But that is not necessarily at fault with the high line. It's the problem that there's no pressure on the ball. And that is why yesterday, in terms of that performance, I blame mostly the midfield. You know, obviously the defence didn't have the best of game. I think Koundé actually yesterday had a really off game. We've barely seen that at all this season. He really did struggle on the right side. Sociedad many times there, getting in down their left side. So that wasn't ideal, you know, and there was other players in attack there. Rafinha wasn't on his game either. Again, we've rarely said that this season. Lewandowski wasn't particularly good either. There was lots of underperformances, but the main issue, the core of the problems, it's midfield. Because that midfield has to be absolutely perfectly set up to be excellent on the ball, to carry the ball forward, to really help us their transition from defence to attack. But it's off the ball, especially off the ball, where they have to be the best. They have to make sure that they are more in control of this game, in control on and off the ball than the other team. And we just weren't against Real Sociedad. They were able to get on top of us. They were able to start dictating the pace of the game. We played the game in the end on their terms, you know, and that's what I mean. Usually, we're the ones dictating. We are the ones controlling the pace there, controlling big moments of the game. But that midfield, the pressing wasn't there, the urgency wasn't there. I still really do question the organisation and the structuring of that midfield. We spoke about it today on the main channel with Frankie de Jong. We're going to talk more about that probably in the international break, but just pushing Pedri into those advanced areas and then leaving Casado and de Jong as the pivot, I think maybe it's a bit too safe. You know, that's the feeling that I got in yesterday's game. Like I say, we started to see lots of sideways passing. Now, all season long, up to this point, we've not seen that. We have seen very direct football from Barca. We have seen a Barca team who take risks, not only in their passing, but also in their shooting. Now, in yesterday's game, there was lots of openings at times, you know, around the edge of the box, maybe loose balls, opportunities to take shots on, to actually go and take it on yourself and take a risk. And suddenly, because we started to see more sideways passing, more safe play in midfield, it seemed to spread to the whole team, whereby people didn't want to take on opportunities anymore. They were happy there to pass the ball on, to play the safe option, to play it out wide, then we'll cross it in. That is not the Barca that we've seen this season. That is not the Barca that we have seen so effectively playing under Hansi Flick. And that is what we really have to avoid. We need to make sure here that we're not deviating away from all of those characteristics that have made us so strong, that have made us a real force to be reckoned with in European football this season. We have to make sure we stay true to what has worked out. And that Barca performance yesterday against Real Sociedad, it was unrecognisable from what we've seen for most of the season from this team. But I do think that's when it gets interesting, guys, because when you think ahead there to the January transfer window, for example, or indeed the upcoming summer transfer window, they're both expected to be very important windows, as they all are, with Barca there at the club. And I've got a really interesting question here regarding rotations at Barca, and maybe what the squad right now are lacking here. Very, very good question that says, the rotations have shown us the most reliable players and the best combination to use, and they basically speak there about Jules Koundé badly being missed in that defence. Of course, Lamine Yamal, even at 17, being such an undisputed starter, and they say as well that Frankie de Jong has not managed to step up in midfield. We also need backups there for Rafinha as well. And who do you think that Barca should sign? And that's the really interesting part of all of this that I think right now, guys, because when you hear transfer rumours regarding Barcelona, you hear very, very big names. We spoke recently about Rafael Leao, we've spoken about Erling Haaland, we've spoken about Victor Gyökeres, and we've even heard Mohamed Salah rumours very recently there. He's coming to the end of his contract at Liverpool at the end of the season. We've even heard him being linked to the club, and you always hear these very, very big names. You often hear attacking players linked to the club. That's what the newspapers love to write about, but that's the interesting thing, because do we actually need that sort of megastar? Do we need that real statement signing? Or actually, when you look at this Barcelona team right now, you see a lot of quality, you see an absolutely fantastic sort of starting 11, the Gala 11 that we have. I would struggle to change anything about that. You know, the players that we know have performed and they prove themselves in this Hansi Flick system, our best 11, it is unbeatable. It is absolutely unmatchable in my opinion. When they're all fit, when they're all fresh, it is outstanding. But the issue for me then is when you start to look outside of that. Because we've got players on the bench who can make impacts in games. You've got players on the bench there who can do a job. But I think certainly there, in very key areas of this team, it is about quality depth. And especially, I've said before, the fullback areas really concern me at Barca. I mean, at left back, we literally have nobody. Okay, we have Gerard Martin, but like I say, it's not ideal. We don't really want to be relying, if you've got a big Champions League game coming up, if you're putting Gerard Martin at left back, I'm probably going to be in need of medical assistance during the game. That's kind of how it's going to be. Koundé on the right-hand side. We've got Fort, but he still needs to grow and really step up into that position. At centre-back, we've got a bit more depth. Midfield, again, there's options there. But again, the attacking side of our team, you think about Rafinha, you talk about Yamal, if one of those players gets a bad injury, you're in massive trouble. And you could probably even include Robert Lewandowski in that as well, in that number 9 position. So that really would be my point here, thinking about upcoming transfer windows, players that you need to target at Barca, where you should spend, money coming in. We're talking about the Nike deal. We're talking about returning to the Camp Nou. We're going to boost our revenues. But the money that we have, I think a lot of it should be spent on improving the depth. And that is a tricky thing to do, because what you've actually got to do there is sign very, very good players, excellent players there. Technical quality is needed. Real specialist positions are required at Barca. And yet, you also may not want them to be undisputed starters, or feel as though they're that good that they come in and command a starting role, because we're happy with a lot of what we've got at Barca. Flick right now is producing, like I say, fantastic things with that best 11, but it's then about improving those players outside of that. And like I say, it's not easy. I remember at Barca when we had MSN, for example, we had Messi, we had Suarez, we had Neymar, and we really, really struggled to get backup players there. We really struggled to actually get depth, because anybody that was coming in at Barca knew they'd be starting. They knew that those were the players that you'd be counting on time and time again. So it was actually quite difficult to attract the kind of quality that we wanted. We had Pedro at the very start of MSN. He was somebody who was providing incredible numbers and incredible impact off the bench, but eventually he got tired of it. He wanted to be in the team. He wanted to play regular football. He didn't want to be constantly an understudy. So that is why Barca here, and I think it may be a little bit easier now because of the calendar, because you could go out there and say, okay, for this player coming in, you may not be a guaranteed starter, but look, you're going to get loads of games. There's so many fixtures right now at Barca, so we're going to see so much rotation in the games to come. And even more so, by the way, they've introduced the Club World Cup. Now, thankfully, we're not in that. And I say thankfully, even though we would have got money, of course. And of course, you want to play in the biggest competitions. But teams are absolutely dreading playing that competition, guys, at the end of the season. We didn't qualify, like I say, because at the time, we didn't actually qualify there based on European coefficient, what we'd done in the Champions League, etc. But like I say, teams are dreading playing that competition. So there's going to be loads and loads of games. So that is why maybe a lot of the rumours that we're seeing, it's going to be interesting to see if Barca go down those roads, if they go out for big signings, marquee signings, big names. But ultimately, we need quality depth. And there are several areas in this Barcelona team that I still think are crying out for it. And we need to make sure that we are looking after the likes of Yamal, the likes of Rafinha, Lewandowski too, Jules Koundé, Alejandro Balde. These are players in our team that cannot really be replaced. And even in midfield, Pedri, Marc Gasardo. Yeah, there's lots of players who can come into midfield, lots of quality there. We've got lots of depth in midfield, but I'm still not sure as of right now. There's players that can do exactly what they're doing. So even the players maybe where we've got depth, it's still about replicating that level. It's still about being able to come into this team and play in the same way. We struggled against Real Sociedad. The whole team underperformed. It wasn't a good game, guys, but the future looks bright at this club. Make no mistake about that. We still have an exceptional team. We still have exceptional quality. And after the international break, mark my words, we will bounce back as a team, and we'll do that together. Do not let those from the outside influence us. Do not let your mood be dictated by what the media want to tell you, and that is why we have to keep coming back here, and we have to keep talking on a regular basis. Between us all here, one big family, guys. So I hope that you're all doing well. I hope that you do continue to enjoy these podcast episodes, and we are going to have plenty more of them coming up in the international break. So if you do have a question, you can also leave it down below in the comments section on this video. I'll be going through all of those comments, having a look at what you guys have got to say, and I'll do my best to answer as many of them as possible during the international break. Thank you indeed, guys, for joining me here, and for all of your excellent support. I will see you all soon, but until next time, as always, Vejska Real Barça!